Welcome to HP FanFiction. Support me by subscribing the channel. Also, like and share the video to keep me motivated to make more videos like these. Master. What is it, Dobby? We are in the middle of something here. Harry was about to have a serious conversation. You have a visit from the blonde miss, Dobby said. Harry pointed at Daphne. She is right here. Is that what he calls me? She glanced at Harry. My name is Daphne, she told Dobby. She had never seen a house elf who was so bad at remembering names. Not that one, Dobby shook his head. The weird one. Luna? Harry asked. Isn't she here to see Lara? Dobby shook his head again. They asked to see Master. Okay, fine. Harry knew there was little point in asking Dobby. I'll go see. Do you mind if I accompany you? I haven't seen Luna in months, Daphne asked. He opened the door to the small hall and found Luna sitting on a chair, happily moving her legs and mouthing some melody. Her father, Zinner, was pacing around in front of the fireplace, looking very shaken. Harry, Luna smiled brightly, stood from her chair and went to give him a hug. Hello, Luna. Did you have a good summer? It was fun. We went to an ancient druid cottage and explored the forests in search of unique creatures. Luna looked very excited. Did you find anything? Daphne had always been a bit skeptical about these creatures. Luna always talked about she had already seen enough weird things, so it wouldn't be much of a surprise if some of them were real. I thought I saw some moon frogs, but they may have been albino toads instead, Luna said. I see. Daphne had never heard of those. But then, Daddy found something in a book and we had to come home earlier. I'm sorry, Pudding. I'll make it up to you next year, but this couldn't wait. Zeno had dark rings around his eyes and looked extremely tired. What is this so important that you found? Harry asked. He could only assume it was something about the Hallows, but he could not imagine what else was left to find. He already had all three of them. Well, Zeno glanced at Daphne and hesitated to continue. It's okay. I trust her, Harry simply said. Daphne didn't say anything, but a smile appeared on her face. Very well, that is good enough for me. Zeno stared at Harry with an unusually focused expression. It's about the fourth Deadly Hallow, he exclaimed all of a sudden. Deadly Hallow? Daphne asked. The fourth one? There is no fourth one. Harry had never heard of this in 2 lifetimes. How could that be? This one is different than the other ones. This fourth Hallow was never given to anyone, unlike the other 3, Zeno explained. Can someone tell me what the Deathly Hallows from the tale? Luna answered her. Deathly Hallows, Daphne repeated. It sounded familiar, but she was still confused. Have you read the tale of the 3 brothers? Harry asked her. Of course. Every child in the magical world has... Wait. By the Hallows you mean the 3 gifts from death. Daphne now recalled some of the details from that book. It has been many years since she read that story. Yes, those, Luna nodded. But that's a children's tale. You are talking about it like it's real. Is it that hard to believe, with all the craziness you have witnessed? Harry said. No, but are you serious? Daphne stared at him, still looking a bit incredulous. It's the truth, Zeno intervened. I witnessed it with my own eyes. He is in possession of all 3 Deathly Hallows. Daphne's eyes moved to Harry. Can I see them? I'm afraid not. They are inside me. Harry knew how this sounded. Inside you, Daphne repeated. Yes, Harry absorbed them and became the master of death. Luna said with excitement, I can still use their effects. As Harry said that, he disappeared from the spot. What? Where did you... Daphne yelped when she felt something touch her arm. You are invisible, she realized. Yes, he reappeared in front of her. This is what you used against those werewolves. She now remembered that he used something like that before. The cloak of invisibility? That's right. You've seen me use that cloak many times, Harry said. You mean that cloak was... Harry nodded. It was one of the Hallows. It had been passed down through many generations of my family. That's why I was so sad when it stopped working. And I told you to buy another one, Daphne muttered. It's fine. The Hallows stopped working because of me. because I took their powers without realizing it, Harry said. What about the other ones? The Wand of Power, Daphne recalled the name. Harry created a bubble of water above his hand. It made my magic much more potent. It also improved my wandless magic. The bubble of water turned into a block of ice, and then it began to change shapes until it transformed into a crystalline rose. Whoa! Daphne stared at the ice sculpture. She knew Harry was a master of transfiguration, but he did this silently and with no wand. All of a sudden, the rose broke apart and the pieces fell to the floor. It lacks finesse, though, Harry added. Still, it's very useful for other types of spells, like for defense. Daphne concluded that he meant that, and the last one, what was it? The Stone of Resurrection, Zeno was the one who answered. It allows the user to communicate with the dead. Daphne gave Harry a nervous look. Is that what you used with the werewolf? He did not go into details last year. Yes, that is what I used back then. But I won't make use of this power without a good reason for it. Disturbing the rest of the dead is not something to use lightly, even if that means you won't believe my words, Harry said. Daphne's look softened. She got closer to Harry and grabbed one of his hands. Even if you had shown me no proof whatsoever, I would have still believed you in the end. The two of them stood in silence, looking at each other for a moment. Are you going to kiss? Luna then asked. Daphne was startled. She let go of Harry's hand and took a step back, covering her face with her witch hat. Zeno coughed. Sorry to interrupt, but I would like to finish what I came here for. Right? The fourth Deathly Hallow. What did you find exactly? Harry asked. Zenos got serious. Over my many years of research, I have found references pointing to a fourth Deathly Hallow several times, but they were nothing more than speculations, rumors, or legends, even more so than the other three. But Harry assumed that Zenos wouldn't have come here if rumors were all he had. Zenos reached into his robes and pulled out a small tome with a black leather cover and something written on the top. A diary? Daphne spoke her first impression. Harry had to agree with her. By the looks of the book, it very much resembled a certain diary he was very familiar with. The name on the cover became clearer after Zenos held it in his palms. ERNP. Anthony Nathaniel Peverell, Zenos revealed. Was that one of the three brothers from the tale? I don't remember if the names were actually mentioned, Daphne commented. No, but this Anthony was the direct descendant of the youngest brother, the one who was given the cloak of invisibility. Zenos glanced at Harry. It was, in fact, him who was responsible for the cloak ending up in the Potter family. Really? Does it say the how and why? Harry asked. You'll have a chance to read it in a moment, but first, there is something else you need to see. He opened the diary around the middle. At this point, the Peverell family was in decline. Anthony was one of its latest members and the current lord of the house. The first half of the diary entries are very mundane and just describe the many struggles he had as the lord. But then on the night of his 30th birthday, he received the visit of a mysterious figure. A mysterious figure, Daphne repeated. You don't mean? Harry could only think of one particular figure. Zenos nodded. It is as you think. The description given here matches perfectly with the one previously mentioned by his ancestors during their brief encounter with death. Death in person came to visit him? Daphne asked. He never uses that name directly. He wrote that someone wearing a black cloak that covered his entire body knocked on his door at night, claiming to be an old family friend. Does it say what this individual looked like? You know, beneath the cloak, Daphne asked. The description was kept vague and simple, not delving into details. I do believe this was done on purpose, perhaps for fear of punishment if he were to say too much. Okay, let's leave the description aside. What did this individual want from Lord Peverell? From what he wrote, the visit was brief. This black-cloaked person inquired about Lord Peverell's ancestors and about the cloak left in his family's care. Before leaving, he gave Anthony Peverell a box and requested that he and his family safeguard this box until the person meant for it finally appeared. He also left a warning to him to never open the box or try to look inside, for whoever did so would suffer a terrible punishment. What happened then? Daphne said with interest. He put the box in the safest place he could think of, his family vault, and then waited for this person meant for the box, but that never happened. And he never tried to open it? I would have been too curious, Harry said. Not everyone is so reckless, Daphne added. He never did, Zinnos answered. That visit left Lord Peveril truly scared and paranoid. Even his writing became different after that day. So this box could still be at the Peveril vault? Daphne asked. That is what I believe, yes. If that was something left by death for someone in particular, I doubt anyone else would be capable of touching it without suffering a terrible fate, Xenos said. After hearing the whole story, Harry recalled something important. But how can you be so sure that this mysterious individual was actually death, and that the box left behind was a fourth Deathly Hallow that no one had ever claimed? Daphne felt that he was jumping to conclusions. I think you may be right, Harry said all of a sudden. Thanks. I think— No, I meant him, Harry interrupted Daphne and pointed at Xenos. Around 2 years ago, I visited my family vaults and saw the one belonging to the Peveril family. You saw the Peveril vault? Daphne exclaimed. Only a few knew about that vault, which remained untouched for centuries at the bottom of Gringotts's underground caves. I didn't just see it. When I got closer, I felt something, some sort of connection. But it was very faint, Harry explained. Like what you felt from the other hollows? Xenos asked. I think so. It's hard to be sure. This was much earlier. Right, you were yet to awaken properly as the Master of Death. I'm sure the connection will be much stronger now, Xenos said. You think that box was left for Harry? Daphne realized what Xenos was implying. I believe it was left for whoever was chosen by the other 3 Deathly Hallows. It just didn't happen until now. I guess we could make a trip to the vaults and check, Harry suggested. And have you thought about how to open the Peveril vault? Because I assume you don't have the keys, Daphne said. I do have the key, actually, Harry said. This surprised both Xenos and Daphne. Why would you have the key to the Peveril vault? Daphne asked. A few years ago, when I visited my family vault, we found it there in a small box hidden behind a wall. It was very weird, Harry admitted. I knew it. This must be fate. Xenos got exited. But those old vaults don't work with just keys. You need to be part of the family bloodline, Harry frowned. So we are still going to need a Peveril to open it for us. That family went extinct centuries ago, Daphne said. We don't have to look for anyone, Xenos proclaimed before moving his eyes to Harry. We have a Peveril descendant right here. Harry, a Peveril? Daphne gave him a dubious look. Xeno pointed to the diary before passing it to Harry. I believe it's from page 90 and onward. Lord Anthony Peveril saved a Muggle-born witch who was being chased by some Muggle villagers. Harry and Daphne began to read the later entries. After saving that girl, the Lord fell in love and wanted to marry her, but his remaining family was against it. Magical houses back then didn't care that much about blood purity, but they still cared about social status. The Peveril family may have been in decline, but they still held a noble position among the small magical society of the era. This girl was just the daughter of some local Muggle commoner. She came from a humble family of pottery artisans. Anthony Peveril became outraged with his family, and by the end of a long conflict, he renounced his lordship and family status, passing it to someone else and leaving his house. If that's how things are, I'm willing to become a simple potter to be with her. Harry repeated the line written in the diary. That's so romantic, Daphne commented. Please, tell me that this is not the origin of my house, Harry grumbled. His library contained little information about the founding of the Potter House, and this story was definitely not there. I do believe that is the case. If you continue to read, there is a lot more, Xeno said. Lord Anthony left the Peveril house, only taking with him a few possessions, but he did take the cloak of invisibility and, I suppose he took the family vault key too. He then married that girl and later adopted Potter as his new family name, although their firstborn son, Alexander Potter, would be the one recognized as the actual family founder. At least it explains how the cloak ended up as a family relic, said Harry. This also means that you really have some Peverell blood in you, Daphne commented. Wait, and what happened to the rest of the family? The diary doesn't mention much about them, but from what I learned from other sources, they didn't last long. The title of Lord was passed to Anthony's cousin, and after that the Peverell house only lasted 2 more generations before vanishing from history, Zeno explained. I wonder what happened to them, Daphne said. Many old families end up disappearing over time. It is a common occurrence. Perhaps they got into conflict with another house more powerful than them and got wiped out, Harry said. Regardless of whether that story is true or not, the next step would be to visit the Peverell vault. Only then can we be sure, he added. Do you mind if I accompany you? Zeno asked. I have spent a large part of my life researching the Deathly Hallows, and this could be the culmination of a life's work. Of course I don't mind. Besides, you are the expert in these matters. I may need your help. Harry? Daphne looked at him. You want to join us? Harry asked. She already knew almost everything about him, so it wasn't like he had much to hide from this girl. That's fine by me, but I can't guarantee that we will find something interesting down there. It may still be a waste of time. Just seeing that ancient vault will be worth the trip. The excitement was reflected in her eyes. It is decided then, and what about you? Harry asked the last occupant of the room. Luna didn't appear to have much interest in their topic of conversation, so she remained quiet the whole time while reading a book. I don't like the goblin mines, they are stuffy and smelly. Fine then. You can stay here. Call Mipsy if you need anything or if you want to go see Lyra. Harry pulled his wand. Let's get to Gringotts then. How far are we going? Daphne asked. The cart ride had already been plenty long, and the goblin kept the cart going further and further into the underground tunnels. They had already passed the area where her family vault was located, and just continued further. Even the illumination was getting dimmer, and she could not see any more vault doors around them. There is still a bit left, said Harry. Fascinating. Zeno was inspecting his surroundings. I once wrote an article about how the goblins were amassing a huge army in the depths of these tunnels and conspiring to take over the surface. What? Shouted the goblin while driving. Lord Lovegood. Daphne gave the man a pleading look to shut up. This was the worst possible place to anger the goblin. Oh, I mean it was just something I heard from an unreliable source. Who told you that? The goblin was getting more anxious. Harry handed him a few galleons. My friend here is just speaking nonsense. Can we forget about his comment? The goblin grumbled something in his language and continued driving the cart. A few minutes later they stopped before a massive crevice in the ground. Have we arrived now? Daphne looked at her surroundings. She saw no more railroads ahead, so she assumed it was here. I can't see any vaults though. It's just a bit ahead, Harry said before gripping the cart with force. Daphne appeared to be confused. Ahead, there is nothing there. Harry, why are you smiling like that? I have never seen you scream like that before, Harry commented after the cart finally stopped. You knew, Daphne exclaimed. After stopping at what seemed like the end of the rails, the goblin pulled another lever and the cart was propelled down the hole at a 90-degree angle at a ridiculous speed. I wanted it to be a memorable experience. I'll give you a memorable experience. Daphne punched his shoulder. We have arrived, you can get out. The goblin sounded somewhat annoyed already. Zeno, you look a bit paler than usual, Harry noted. Oh, I'm perfectly fine. Bleg. He vomited next to the goblin. Daphne jumped out of the cart. Damn wizard. Get off my cart, the goblin shouted. I didn't see that coming. Zeno said calmly as he didn't just unload inside the cart. It must have something to do with Bleg. Out. So, here we are, the ancient vaults, Harry announced. They could hear the goblin complaining in the back. You know, I could clean that with a single spell, Harry offered. No, we can have wizard magic here. It could trigger the alarm and we would all die. The goblin continued to use his dirty rag in the most efficient way possible. What kind of alarm is that? Daphne wondered. I'm really sorry about that. Zeno apologized again. Harry had already given the goblins several more galleons. Otherwise they would have received more than some insults in goblin tongue. Where is the Peverell one? Daphne looked around. There were only half a dozen torches illuminating this large circular chamber, so it was almost impossible to distinguish one vault from another. Over here. Harry was feeling the same connection that he felt during his first visit, but this time it was much stronger. He quickly located the door with the Peverell symbol on top. This is it, the end of my research, Zeno said with mixed feelings. Hold it, wizard. The goblin dropped what he was doing when he saw Harry approach the vault door. You can't do that. I haven't done anything yet, said Harry. You were authorized to access the Potter vaults, and only the Potter vaults, the goblin said. If you try to open any other vault, the security... But if I can actually open the vault, doesn't that mean that I had permission? Harry asked, while taking something out of his pocket. The goblin glanced at the vault that Harry had in front of him. Are you a Peverell? Distantly related. Harry looked at Zeno. Maybe, he then added. Are we sure about this? Perhaps there is another way to access that vault. Daphne was starting to have doubts. Despite having the key, this may not be enough to open the vault gate if it also requires having enough Peverell blood. Maybe we could search for the descendants of the main family. After all, Anthony Peverell left his house a long time ago, and since then his bloodline must have been thinned out in favor of others. It will be fine. This is fate. Harry is the chosen one. The door will definitely open for him, Zeno claimed with absolute confidence. Harry turned around and took a better look at the vault door. The design was a bit different from his family's. It looked much more ancient and rustic. But he could still easily recognize the place where he had to insert the key and put his hand. He looked back at the key he was holding. It was definitely as ancient as this gate, and it carried the Peverell symbol on it. This has to work. Wait. This is very irregular. The goblin was starting to panic. We must return to the ground level and speak with the manager, Yellow Scar. And then we have to go through all of this again? Daphne asked. Since I am already here, I may as well give it a try. Harry held the key with his left hand and placed his right one on the metallic plate, despite the goblin's complaints. Harry felt a pinch on his index finger, and knew that some blood had been drawn and gave the key a twist at the same time. The group stood in silence, looking at the vault door, waiting with anticipation to see if it would open. The key was sucked into the gate without warning, and this one then began to make a series of noises. This is different. Harry noticed that this was not what happened when his father opened the Potter vault. It's opening? Daphne exclaimed. See? I told you. Harry was fated to be here at this very moment and to... Silence! The goblin screamed, startling everyone in the process. Listen. Harry felt that something was wrong. The noises coming from the gate had stopped all of a sudden, and now there were different ones from somewhere else. Oh no! The goblin hurried to return to his minecart. He wasted no time getting inside and began to pull levers, not caring any more about the mess that Zeno made. Where are you going? Daphne glared at the goblin. The security measures. You blasted wizard. You have triggered the alarm with your reckless behavior. Now the defenses have been activated. The goblin pulled one last lever and the cart began to move backward. Defense system? Harry could detect something opening, but it was none of the vault doors. The sound came from somewhere further away. Hey! You can't leave us here. Daphne wanted to catch the cart, but it had already gotten too far away. You are doomed. The goblin's cart disappeared into the darkness. Maybe I was wrong after all, Zeno realized. You think? Harry raised an eyebrow. Still, it was me who created this mess. Let me deal with them, he added. Them? Daphne then began to hear steps. The source of the sounds was a large hole that had appeared between two of the vault doors. From this hole, a four-legged creature emerged into the main chamber. The feeble light of the torches did a poor job of showing its features, but for those who were a bit familiar with it, they could easily recognize it. Is that what I think it is? Zeno asked. Because if it is, we are in some serious trouble. What do you think it is? Daphne was sure she had seen it before in some books, but the name evaded her. Try not to breathe too much. Harry stepped forward. That is a Nundu. A feline-like creature with dark leathery skin walked out of the recently opened hole. It had bright eyes that pierced the darkness of the cavern and a pouch around its neck with spikes all over its surface. As the creature moved and breathed, green poisonous smoke came out of its mouth. Any person who inhaled that smoke would be dead in mere seconds. Despite its relatively small size compared to other dangerous magical beasts, the Nundu was considered one of the worst, and a full squad of 24 trained wizards was the minimum recommended to deal with this monster. "This is the security measure the goblin was talking about," Daphne asked. "No wonder he was so scared," Zeno said. They only lifted their eyes off the Nundu for a second, and that was all it needed to lose it in the darkness, where Daphne heard a loud sound on her left side and was startled to find the Nundu had almost reached her, but ended up clashing against a powerful barrier. Harry did not waste time using his strongest defensive spell. "Don't take your eyes off them," he warned. Zeno then saw something moving a bit further away. There were 2 more creatures like the first one. They were slowly walking out of the opening. "3 Nundus!" Daphne exclaimed. She had read terrifying tales about what a single one of these monsters could do. "Petra, tread at some haste." Harry did not want to give the Nundu any time to recover after hitting its head against his shield and went on the offensive. 13 sharp stone spears formed from the ground beneath it and shot toward the target. This was one of his most efficient transfigurations and the same one he had used to kill a basilisk before. But against the Nundu it was useless. The spears were fast and their aim was true. But the magical feline was too nimble and quick. It managed to squeeze between the stone spears and escaped without suffering any damage. Harry frowned. He had hoped to end this quickly. The chamber was too small to use any of his most destructive spells without the risk of collapsing it, and with 3 Nundus filling the limited space with their deadly poison, time was of the essence. In the next instant, his wand was replaced by his goblin steel staff. "Good thing I took precautions." Libera. 7 of the 9 arcs in his body became active and gained a bright shine. Harry's eyes changed color to a bright blue as his body was overwhelmed by a massive surge of magical energy. The Nundu remained at the spot where it had landed and stared at Harry, as if waiting for his next move. The other 2 did not show any intent to join their brother in the fight. Nundus were very prideful lone hunters. They would never share prey unless they intended to steal it. Instead, they moved their attention to the other 2 people in the room, who were still behind Harry's barrier. Harry had finished his short preparation and went back at it. "Let's see how you dodge this." He conjured 100 steel blades all around the Nundu in front of him. The beast made a startled expression. It clearly had not been expecting a single wizard to be able to do something like this. The blades began to move almost immediately after being conjured, not giving it time to adjust its position. With so many of them flying from every angle, it didn't matter how fast the Nundu was, it could not escape this time around. Dozens of sharp steel blades impacted its body with tremendous force. Harry expected to see the creature become completely skewered, but the result was much more disappointing than that. "Are you serious?" Speed was not the only thing that made a Nundu hard to kill. Its leathery skin had magical properties that made it as resilient as the strongest metal. Harry's conjured blades had only managed to inflict superficial cuts, but it wasn't like they accomplished nothing. The Nundu roared in anger while glaring at Harry. It had been too long since anyone had managed to make it feel this much pain. "This is bad." Harry saw the other 2 creatures charging at the barrier protecting Daphne and Zeno. He had confidence in his defenses, but those sharp claws would eventually be able to damage the runes and take them down, and even if they didn't, the deadly toxins exuded by these 2 would start to seep through the barrier. "I can't fail again the next attack. I have to kill it no matter what," Harry thought. The Nundu stared at Harry and growled. The creature was not only arrogant but also had a high level of intelligence and understood that this person was very dangerous. As an apex predator, it is rare for it to find an opponent that would force it to get serious, but it knew that this was no time to hold back and went on the offensive. Its eyes shone with more intensity, its leathery pouch became more inflated, while green toxic smoke escaped its mouth. And then, it disappeared from its spot. Harry held the staff in front of him to intercept the sharp claw of the Nundu. He saw the incredibly sharp claw beginning to cause an indentation on the surface of the goblin steel artifact, something that should be almost impossible. Depulso. The Nundu was pushed back but was not deterred in the slightest. Its intent still lingered and it was already preparing to charge again. Gladius. The staff transformed into a long single-edged sword made of the same composition as the staff. Normal steel was not enough to cut through its tough hide, but goblin steel was several grades higher in terms of sharpness. However, he could not stop at just that. Divulsa. A baleful purple aura enveloped the blade. Accelerato. He felt his muscles tense as the enhancement charm took effect. This would allow him to move much faster but would also tear his bones and muscles apart if he kept it for too long. The Nundu jumped in the air with both its claws ready to cut him into shreds. But then, all of a sudden, Harry disappeared from view. This took the Nundu by surprise and made it lose its focus momentarily. It all happened in less than a second. The invisible cursed blade slashed the beast across its chest before it had a chance to understand what had happened. Harry had not moved from his spot, he had merely used his ability to become invisible as a distraction to create an opening in its defenses. He then moved aside, allowing the Nundu to fall behind him. The cut had been deep, but not deep enough to reach its internal organs. However, Harry knew that this was already over. The Nundu let out an indescribable roar of agony when it felt the curse eating away at its insides. Its powerful hide could not protect it from this type of damage. And Harry had empowered the corrosive curse as much as it was possible to do so. Even a massive dragon would have been corroded in seconds with the amount of magic he'd put in it. When he glanced back, all that was left was a pool of blood and some bones. The two other beasts had stopped their assault on the magical shield when they heard the agonizing noises from their brother. It was then that they realized something, that Wizard was not just another prey for them to hunt, but a predator like them. The creatures were intelligent enough to recognize they were in a dangerous situation and, against their usual instincts, it was best to work together and eliminate the threat. They then proceeded to ignore Daphne and Zeno, who were considered harmless to them, and focused on Harry. Great, now I have to deal with two of them at the same time. One had already been difficult enough. His eyes moved to one of his rings. It was still shining brightly, meaning it still had plenty of magic in it, but that was not going to last forever. Should I activate the other two and go all out? He considered it for a moment, but during the one and only test he had performed, the moment he activated the full 9 Arkstone array, it would be followed by a powerful surge of magic that would shake the surroundings with tremendous violence. If I end up collapsing the chamber, it will all be for naught. But it's not like I have run out of tricks. The two Nundus moved at an incredible speed and were already in front of him. His staff had recovered its original shape, but his body was still under the effect of the speed charm, allowing him to react faster. Incendium. Viridescent flames erupted forward like a volcano, covering his vision. Even with their incredible resistances, the two beasts knew better than to get hit by that cursed green fire. So, making use of their incredible speed, they moved away before being touched by the flames. Daphne and Zeno were watching everything from inside the protective barrier. Zeno was of course very worried, but the wizard knew his limits. The only thing he could accomplish if he tried to fight alongside Harry would be to get in his way and maybe cause them both to die. Daphne had a different idea in her mind. I have to do something. She could not stand there and continue to watch any longer. It wasn't that she didn't have trust in Harry to win, but more that she did not want to just be one more person being protected by him. She wanted to be at his side. Her eyes moved to the dead Nundu. There wasn't much left of it, but there was only one thing that interested her. That blood should be enough, she murmured to herself. Don't do anything foolish, little one. Those beasts are not to be trifled with. Zeno's usual playful and aloof demeanor was nowhere to be seen. I know what I'm doing, Daphne said with confidence. She was not one to rush into things without thinking. She had a clear plan in mind. I have not wasted my summer playing around, Mr. Lovegood. I can help him now. I have an idea of what to do. After saying that, Daphne ran out of the barrier without hesitation. Harry was too distracted by the two Nundus to realize that Daphne had left the barrier and was now running across the chamber. Luckily for her, the two beasts were completely focused on Harry and didn't care about chasing anyone else at the moment. When she reached the pool of blood, she knelt down in front of it, touching the thick liquid with her wand, and began to chant in Old English. "Seeketh those folk, seeketh those liketh thee." The blood began to stir. "Findeth those folk, and killeth those folk, all." The pool of blood came to life. It divided itself into several equal parts, and remained in the air, waiting for the final command. Sanguinus cadem. Daphne's wand was pointing at the two Nundus. The orbs of Nundu blood adopted the shape of sharp needles before flying to their targets, moving as fast as bullets. Harry had noticed an intense magical current behind him but was not able to turn his attention away from these two. He was using his wand in his left hand, forming a barrier to block one beast while using his staff to fight off the other one. They did not give him even a second to breathe. And that was also starting to apply in the literal sense as the air around him became increasingly toxic to breathe. Then, out of nowhere, some red spikes came flying and buried themselves into the flesh of the Nundus, making them yelp in pain. The blood needles were sharper than the average steel and were able to pierce the surface of their tough hides. But Daphne's magic was not finished yet. The needles used the wounds as an entry point to bury themselves into the bodies of the beasts and continue to cause havoc from the inside. The two Nundus let out roars of agony and Harry felt their pressure completely disappear. The beasts knew they were in a dire situation now and did not think twice before turning around and trying to escape back into the opening they used to enter the chamber. "You think you can leave?" Harry said. As soon as the first one turned around, he plunged the tip of his staff into its back. Divulsa, the corrosive curse, was injected directly into the Nundu's body. The other one was already several feet away, albeit the damage caused by Daphne was making it move much slower than usual. Harry removed the staff from one beast and used all his remaining strength to throw it at the other one like it was a javelin. Depulso. As the staff left his hand, he added a wandless banishing charm for good measure. The staff became a blur until it caught the Nundu on its side, almost piercing it completely and sending it tumbling to its death. Harry could feel his body complaining from the strain he was putting it through, so he hurried to cancel his enhancement charm and close the connection to the 7 Arkstone array before collapsing to his knees. "Harry, are you okay?" Daphne saw the toxic smoke close to his face and used a wind charm to move it away. "I doubt that would kill me, but thanks." Harry stood back up. "And I'm fine, just a bit tired." He turned and looked at her worried face. "Seriously, I'm fine. By the way, was that blood magic?" Daphne nodded. "I didn't want to learn it at first, that magic I just used. It is meant to kill people related to the target of the blood curse. Seems very cruel." "Magic is not cruel, just the people that use it," Harry corrected her statement. "That's what Miss Yoffel said," Daphne replied. "Is it over? Can I come out?" Xenos asked from the other side of the room. Harry gave his wand a flick and removed the protection. Totally safe. "Those damn beasts are not standing up again." But Daphne glanced at the last two. Their bodies had dissolved completely like the first one, leaving only their bones and some blood. "You know, the materials of the Nundus would have been worth a fortune. What a shame there is not much left. If I didn't use that curse, the ones dissolving on the ground could have been us," Harry said. "I wasn't complaining," Daphne huffed. "I just thought it was a shame to lose such valuable materials. And I think I helped you quite a bit this time, right?" She got a bit closer. Harry turned around and went to retrieve his staff. "I had everything under control." "Really? Because those two last ones appear to have been giving you a hard time from where I was standing." "Nonsense," Harry brushed her off. "I was about to take care of them with..." "With what?" she asked. "Now you'll never know," Harry shrugged. But he stared at her directly. You were very helpful back there, so thanks. He turned to face the pivotal vault. Well, if there are no more security measures, we can open this door now. I don't think it will open with your touch. Your pivotal blood must be too diluted to pass the safety protocols, Xenos said. Yes, I think we all noticed that, Daphne said. But Harry may have another way. Sure, I do. Harry tapped the gate with his staff. You may want to stand back for this. The vault gate began to shake as Harry attempted to overpower the protections embedded inside. Despite how old this particular vault was, the goblins who created it had made sure it was extremely secure, even by modern standards. Harry knew there was a more efficient and discreet way of doing this. He recalled seeing Bill Weasley opening ancient vaults with relative ease and without triggering any protections. Unfortunately, that required a very specific set of skills he did not possess. The vault gate shook again. Are you trying to break it or open it? Daphne took another step back. She was beginning to doubt Harry a little bit. I'm not sure whatever occurs first, I suppose, Harry said calmly. I believe our goblin guide must be on his way to inform his superiors about our misdeed. Xenos commented. Daphne gasped. Everything happened too fast and she hadn't had time to digest it at all, but she had just realized something important. The goblins are going to arrest us. By Merlin, we are criminals. Relax, it's going to be fine. Let me deal with the goblins when they come here, Harry said. Daphne could not help but become more nervous at hearing this. By dealing with them, you mean? I'm not going to kill them, okay? I have sort of an idea. Sort of. Daphne raised an eyebrow. Yes, sort of. But that is for later. Now, allow me to concentrate. This work requires finesse, he huffed in annoyance. Daphne nodded and remained quiet. She may not know much about opening goblin-made doors, but she could believe it was a very difficult and delicate task. Harry continued to pour raw magic into the door, hoping to break the defenses that were keeping him from being able to use transfiguration on it. During the previous fight, he had made use of an external source of magic, so his personal reserves were still intact. He could feel something on the other side calling for him. It was much more intense than during his previous visit, and it was getting progressively stronger. This must mean the gate is being weakened, or at least that's what he thought. Feeling a bit relieved to know that his method was showing results, Harry continued pouring more and more of his magic into the gate. Soon enough, sparks of light could be seen across its surface with their naked eyes. I got you, he coursed even more magic, and this time it shook more violently. Harry knew it. It was almost there. All he had to do now is give it a last push. But I must say, Miss Greengrass, Xenos started. You shouldn't worry too much about the goblins. Our previous actions against the Nundus were merely an act of self-defense. I'm sure they will be reasonable. Daphne tried to ignore the vault gate shaking and considered Xenos's words. Maybe we can get away with only an apology and some monetary compensation. I mean, we haven't really caused any real damage. At that moment, the gate stopped shaking and making noises, like it had finally been defeated. The defenses are down. I think I can know. Before Harry could finish his sentence, the vault gate exploded into large metallic chunks that went flying everywhere. The gate had become unable to contain the immense amount of energy that had been concentrated inside, so when its protections finally failed, it blew up with violence. Daphne and Xenos hurried to drop to the ground and heard the pieces of the vault door passing close by and crashing against the walls of the chamber. For the next several seconds they heard a cacophony of unsettling noise as everything around them seemed to be destroyed. Once it was finally over and silence returned, Harry looked back at the mess he had just created. There were large pieces of metal embedded into the walls, and one of them had hit one of the other vault gates, causing some serious damage to it. He was glad to see that Daphne and Xenos were fine. None of the parts were even close to touching them since they had been standing near the center of the chamber. This was not the ideal outcome he had hoped for, and this will certainly make things more difficult with the goblins, but what's done is done. He saw as Daphne and Xenos stood back up and looked around at the disaster before going back to stare at him with complicated expressions. Harry could not guess what they were thinking at this instant, so he just pointed at the hole left behind by the absence of the vault gate. I opened it. You don't say? Daphne had her arms crossed and a deep frown on her face. I did tell you to stand back. He did say that. And what happened to the whole "this work requires finesse" thing you said before? Daphne glanced around the chamber again. I don't see much finesse here. This is certainly not the way but I suppose it doesn't matter much. Dinos didn't seem to mind it. But the goblins will not like this one bit, he added. Those guys are never happy anyway. Let us go inside. No need to waste more time here, said Harry. Daphne peeked at the park entrance. As much as she wanted to yell at Harry a bit more, her curiosity about the contents of the vault was stronger than anything else. The three of them stood before the entrance. It was too dark to see anything beyond a couple of feet into the vault. Here we go. Harry aimed his wand forward. Lumos. Harry's spell illuminated the entrance, but nothing of note jumped into their field of vision immediately. The vault seemed to be at least as big as the Potter one, maybe even bigger. It was hard to tell without seeing the walls. The floor was made of very simple grey stone, and there were no pieces of furniture, gold shelves, or anything one would expect to find inside a vault. There's not much in here, Harry pointed out the obvious. They then heard a loud crunch noise coming from below. Wait, I think I stepped on something, Daphne said. The three of them looked down at the same time. There was just enough light to discern exactly what it was. Ah! Daphne screamed and took a big jump back to get away from the thing she had stepped on. There were bones on the ground, but these were not just random scattered bones. They were bones belonging to a human hand that was still attached to the rest of the skeleton. A corpse, Xenos exclaimed. Who dies inside a vault? Harry created a few more spheres of light to get a better look at the skeleton. It was lying face down on the floor, and from the looks of it, it belonged to a woman. She was still wearing a long, elegant crimson dress, and her long, dark hair remained mostly intact. It was hard to tell if the face was completely decomposed, but no one seemed eager to turn her around. Boo! Who is that? Daphne approached again, very slowly, and remained behind Harry. Are you worried she is going to stand back up? Harry asked her with a hint of mockery. Of course not. That is definitely someone from the Peverell family. Xenos pointed at the sign from the Peverell house on the dress. Makes sense, this is their vault, Harry said. So we can discard a thief who sneaked in here and got trapped. Not that it was very likely to begin with, added Daphne. And what about those over there? Harry pointed ahead and several orbs of light illuminated the place better. Daphne gasped when the light charms showed her the rest of the vault. In front of them, several more skeletons were now visible. What happened here? How did so many people die inside this vault? Daphne wondered. As they got closer, they counted 4 more corpses at different distances from the entrance. 3 were facing the vault door, like the first one they saw. It was like they all died while trying to leave the vault. It was very unsettling. The one Harry found the most interesting was the last one. This one had died while clutching at some sort of stone altar near the middle of the vault. What do we have here? This altar appeared to be the only thing inside this room. He moved the lights to observe it better. The altar itself had nothing of interest on it, no marks or drawings of any kind. It was like it was created in a rush. But on top of the altar was a box, a pitch-black box. I believe we have found what we came here for. Xenos's eyes rested on the box. Daphne was the only one looking at the last skeleton, the one resting at the base of the altar. This one looked very different from the others. By the type of robes, it could be concluded this was a man. Those robes are incredibly fancy. She recognized some of the materials, like the very high-quality dragon hide that formed the outside of his robes, or the mixture of precious metals and stones that decorated it. She had seen a few pompous lords dressed up in similar fashion during her visits to the ministry with her father, but it was a rare sight. Wait, look at this. She spotted something glistening and knelt down to pick it up. Right next to the skeleton's right hand was a ring. It was golden with a black emblem decorating its surface. Let me see. Xenos got closer and took a better look. It's a family ring, Daphne said with absolute certainty. She had seen many of these types of rings already. The lord or lady of a house would be the only one who could wear them. A quick glance at the emblem on the ring revealed who this person had been in life. I believe we are in the presence of the last Peveril Lord, Xenos said. And I believe we have discovered why the Peveril family vanished without a trace, Harry added. These 5 people in the vault must have been the last members of the house at that time. That would explain why no one had come here to reclaim the family ring and take care of the bodies. But how did they enter here? The previous lord had taken the key with him before leaving. That's how it ended in my family vault, Harry said. The goblins must have made another copy for them. After all, once the next Peveril Lord took charge, he could use his family ring as evidence of his claim. The goblins could not refuse him entrance to his own house vault. Daphne had read a lot about the inner workings of Gringotts in her free time. I'm more worried about what killed them. She looked at the position of the bodies. It almost seems like they were trying to escape from something. Yes, you may be right. Xenos's eyes moved to the box. And I believe the culprit is right here. The box, you mean? Daphne glanced at it too. The box was very strange. Even upon close inspection, they could not tell what material it was made of, but the most striking feature was its color. It was the darkest tone of black they had ever seen. It was so dark that it almost gave the feeling that the box was absorbing the light coming from Harry's light charms. Whatever the box was made of, it was something very unnatural. Harry stared at the Peveril Lord with a knowing look. You couldn't help it, huh? You tried to open the box. Death's warning, Xenos muttered. It appears that the warning left behind was not a mere bluff. Harry, are you sure about this? After seeing those corpses, Daphne was more than worried. According to the diary, this was only meant to be opened by one chosen individual. Harry ran his fingers across the box's surface. It felt cold to the touch, but the connection was stronger than ever. Whatever it was that had been calling for him, it was inside this box. I have no doubt that Harry is the one meant to open this, Xenos said with confidence. You were also sure he could open the door, and if he isn't, we are going to end up like them. Daphne's eyes moved over the several skeletons scattered across the vault. I have a lot of confidence in this, Harry said. But you can wait outside of the vault if you want. I understand. Daphne sighed. Fine, open it. I'll stay. Very well, he picked up the box and held it in one hand. It was a lot lighter than he expected. There we go. He pulled on the lid, and this one opened with almost no effort. Xenos and Daphne stared intensely at the box. They were all holding their breaths as Harry pulled the lid up. And then, nothing happened. Well, what's inside? Daphne could not see the inside of the box from where she was standing. Harry was holding it too high for her to peek. How can it be? Xenos exclaimed. I don't know how to say this. Harry lowered the box a bit so now they could all see the inside. It's empty. Unlike the pitch-black exterior, the inside was very light in tone, and they could all clearly see that it was completely empty. Empty? Even Daphne could not believe it. This is impossible. No one else could have taken its contents without suffering from death's punishment, Xenos said. Could it have been a different master of death? Harry asked. There has never been another one since their inception. The Deathly Hallows have only been reunited once, Xenos explained. Still, Harry stared at the box. The feeling had not disappeared. He still felt its calling. But if the box is empty, what is? Oh. He then realized the truth. Is the box?
What do you mean?
Daphne asked. I mean that there was never anything inside this thing. The box is the 4th Deathly Hallow. As Harry said this, the black box closed by itself. The lid became sealed shut, and the opening disappeared, leaving a completely smooth black cube. What's happening? Xenos exclaimed. The black cube in Harry's hand began to dissolve before their eyes. Its previously solid surface turned into a dark, thick mist. Harry did not panic. He felt that this was supposed to happen. The cube had only been a temporary shape. That was not the real visage of Death's last artifact. Harry, Daphne was extremely nervous. She was watching as the mist began to encircle Harry. The cube had completely disappeared, leaving only the mist behind. The dark substance was so thick that it almost looked like a liquid. It was now covering Harry from head to toe. Harry's shoes were the only thing left visible. "Harry, what do we do?" Daphne wondered. "Nothing," Zinus hurried to say. "Look closely. He is not struggling or making any painful noises. Harry is fine. I believe we are about to see the real Hallow." Daphne did not take her eyes off Harry for 1 second. If he even gestured to ask for help, she was going to do something. But Harry never made a sound as the mist began to take shape. It seemed to mold around his body like a piece of cloth, but it still covered everything in such a dark tone of black that it almost seemed to eat away the light around him. "I see now. I know what this is," Zenos said with excitement. Daphne had no idea what he was talking about, so she remained quiet. The material covering Harry had gone completely from gas to liquid and finally to solid. There was a thick fabric covering his body from head to toe, not even showing an inch of his skin. His face remained hidden beneath a cloak, and no matter how much they tried, they could not see his face at all. Then, all of a sudden, a pair of green beacons of light appeared on his face. Daphne got startled and almost fell on her back. Zenos was smiling the whole time. "The visage of death. These are the robes used by Death herself. What a magnificent sight." "Death," Daphne mumbled. It was true. Right now the figure of Harry has been replaced by the god of death, or at least the depiction that most people had agreed on when creating their drawings and paintings. The pitch-black robes moved slightly as he took a step forward. Its 2 shiny green eyes were now focused on the scared girl. Daphne felt shivers and had the sudden need to get away from him. "Stop, don't get in." "Daphne, it's me." The voice of Harry washed away her fear. The cloak was pulled back, revealing his usual face. "Sorry for startling you. I was trying to get adjusted to this. Still feels a bit strange." He moved his hands a bit while saying this. "So this is the 4th Deathly Hallow. I was not expecting clothes," said Harry. He thought it was going to be some sort of weapon. "Comparing Death's visage with simple clothes is a bit..." Zenos murmured. "So? You are fine. When I saw that black thing wrap all over you, I got scared," said Daphne. Harry looked at her. "I'm perfectly okay, Daphne. I just need to..." They heard a commotion outside.
"Oh, what now?"
Daphne asked. "That may be the goblins, I presume," said Zenos. "That's all right. We got what we came for. Let us go outside and deal with the goblins," Harry said. "Are you going out like that?" Daphne asked. Without covering his head, Death's robes may appear like a normal black piece of clothing, but the more one stared at them, they would begin to notice their unnatural movements. It was like the fabric itself was alive. The color was also off-putting. The tone of black was so dark that it almost seemed to vanish into the shadows while eating away all the light around it. "Right? I should take this off." Harry almost forgot he was wearing them. The robes were extremely comfortable to him, almost like being wrapped in a warm blanket on a cold day. But when he made a motion to take them off, he found an issue. They seemed to be stuck. Daphne got a bit closer to look at the robes better. Oh, wow! At this distance, she could clearly see it. The robes weren't really acting like a piece of clothing. The black material appeared to have fused with Harry's body, making it impossible to remove. "I'm not sure how to say this, Harry, but it's like the robes have become part of you." She hoped for that not to be true, though. "Wait, you mean I can't remove them?" Harry frowned. "Calm down. Of course the robes have become a part of you. This is normal," Zenos stated. "You knew this was going to happen?" Daphne threw him an accusatory glance. "I didn't even know the 4th Hallow existed until earlier this month, much less what it was." He looked at Harry, "But this should be no different than the other 3. They also bonded with you and you have control over them and their powers. The robes should be the same. At least that is what I believe." He pointed at his head. "You removed the hood without thinking. Remember?" Harry realized Zenos was correct. When Daphne got scared of him, he wanted to show her his face, and the robes obeyed. He closed his eyes and focused on his connection with the robes, then he gave them a command to hide away. The robes immediately began to shrink until they were nothing more than a small black sphere, which then proceeded to disappear inside his body. Fascinating. Xenos had a wide smile on his face. So, it's still in your body, Daphne wondered. Yes, I can feel it. If I were to give it an order to come out, it will, he said with certainty. Humans! A loud shout came from outside. This is Commander Silveraxe, from the Goblin 1st Battalion. You have nowhere to escape to. Come out and surrender in peace. Yikes! He sounds very angry. Daphne had hoped they would be more willing to talk things out, but it appears to be very unlikely now. Do not worry, Harry said he has a plan. Xenos pointed out to her. This one nodded. You can leave it to me. I'll handle the goblins. He then began to walk out of the chamber. Daphne and Xenos followed him close behind. When the trio went out into the chamber, they found themselves facing an alarming amount of armor-clad goblins who looked ready for war. How did so many of them get here so quickly? Daphne exclaimed. It took them at least 10 minutes of riding the minecart to arrive at the chambers. For this amount of goblins to be here in such a short amount of time, it should simply not be possible. Xenos gave her a knowing look. You are assuming the goblins don't have a better and faster way to move around the tunnels, one that they keep secret from us, he said with enthusiasm. One of my most reliable sources once told me. Silence, humans, the commander screamed with fury. Drop your wands and lift your hands in the air. Do not make me repeat myself. The soldiers had circled the vault entrance, completely sealing any chance of escape without a fight. As the commander gave them the order to surrender, the armor-clad goblins took a few steps closer with their sharp weapons pointing at them. Daphne glanced at Harry's back, wondering what kind of plan he had in mind. She could only hope he was not thinking about embarking on something that would lead to a war with the Goblin Nation. They had enough problems already. It's okay, leave it to me. He turned around to her with a confident smile on his face before walking forward to the goblins. He did not take 2 steps before the commander shouted back at him. He and his soldier appeared to be ready for an attack at any second. Stop. The commander pointed his axe at Harry and his men did the same with their weapons. A good variety of swords, spears and axes were being aimed at Harry. There is no need for that, Commander Silver. Harry started. Silveraxe? The commander corrected. Right, Harry shrugged. Then, much to Daphne's surprise, Harry lifted his hands in the air and offered the goblin commander a gentle smile. We surrender peacefully. He threw his wand at the leader's feet. What? Daphne thought she had heard him wrong. Harry never gave up without a fight. She never thought she would hear him say something like that. But then she recalled his words from before. Is this part of his plan? I must trust him. Xenos was also surprised but hid it better. I thought I was about to witness the beginning of a new interesting chapter in Goblin history. He did sound a bit disappointed. Smart choice, wizard. The Goblin commander pointed ahead. Arrest them. A dozen armed Goblin soldiers ran at them. Once they took away their wands, they put cuffs on them and led them into a room where they were told to wait until new orders arrived. The room where they left them had grey walls and no windows, but at least it wasn't a cell. It looked more like an interrogation room with a large wooden table in the middle and some very uncomfortable chairs. 6 guards remained inside to keep a close eye on them and prevented them from speaking with each other. After what felt like hours, the commander from before came back and led Harry away, leaving Daphne alone with Xenos and the 6 guards. How long are they going to keep us here? Daphne complained. And what are they doing to Harry? She wanted to be patient, but even that had a limit. The commander must be questioning him. One of the guards finally answered one of her questions. He was just hoping for her to shut up now. Daphne was about to open her mouth again when the door opened abruptly. A goblin wearing an elegant tunic and a gold monocle on his face came inside and glanced at Daphne and Xenos. Who are you? Daphne asked. Unlike the rest of them, this goblin did not look like a soldier, he was more like a scholar. Ignoring her question, the elegant goblin moved his attention to one of the guards next to the door, the one who had just spoken to Daphne. You may release those two humans, but do not return their wands until they are out of Gringotts. You are letting us go, just like that? Zinus inquired. The goblin turned to them. Yes, you are free to go. The guards will escort you outside, and then… Wait a minute, what about Harry? Daphne interrupted his explanation as one of the guards was opening her cuffs. The goblin let out an exasperated sigh. Mr. Harry Potter has confessed to being the only one responsible for the crimes committed against our nation, freeing the both of you from any charges. So there is no point in keeping you here. But that's not fair. He is not a criminal. I want to see him, Daphne demanded. The elegant goblin sighed again because he knew he could not deny that request. I was afraid you would make that demand very well, but you will have to wait for his representative to arrive. Representative? Daphne asked. Of course, Miss Greengrass. We are not savages. Mr. Potter is a minor, and he is entitled to choose an adult to represent him during the reading of his sentence. Sentence? What about a trial? The seriousness of the situation was sinking in for Daphne. These goblins really wanted to treat Harry as a dangerous criminal. Sir, a different guard knocked on the door and peeked his head inside. The representative is here. Wonderful. Maybe we can get this done in a brief manner. I had already made plans for the evening. The elegant goblin smiled. He was about to turn around when he seemed to remember something. By the way, my name is Blue Fang, and I am the judge for this particular case. Now follow me and don't lag behind. Daphne and Zenos shared a look before going out of the room. As they were doing this, they heard a familiar voice. What is this about? I came as soon as I could, but one has tea. Headmaster. Daphne immediately recognized the elderly wizard with the bright yellow robes. Miss Greengrass and Zenos. What a strange combination. Dumbledore looked at them with a hint of confusion. Greetings, Albus. It has been quite a while since we saw each other, Zenos said. Dumbledore nodded. It has. I assume you two are also related to this incident with Harry? Yes, we came with him. But, Daphne said. Well, that is great. Then you can tell me what is going on, because… Mr. Dumbledore, the goblin known as Blue Fang interrupted their conversation. I understand your eagerness to know more, but if you all follow me, I shall take you to Mr. Potter, and then we can explain everything in more detail. It will be much faster that way. They obeyed the goblin and followed after him, along with several guards, to a nearby room. The place they were in looked like a maze of corridors and doors that all looked the same. Only the goblins would be able to navigate this maze without getting lost. When they entered, they found themselves in a room that looked exactly the same as their previous one. Harry was sitting at the table, while the goblin commander who arrested them sat on the opposite side. All around them were 8 goblin soldiers, with their spears in hand. Harry, Daphne was the first one to say something before she moved to his side, ignoring everyone else. The guards gripped their spears, but their commander was quick to give them a gesture of, "It is fine." "Professor," Harry glanced at the old wizard. "Sorry to make you come all the way here. They insisted I needed to have an adult present, and I didn't want to bother my parents. So you decided to bother me," he said with a hint of amusement. "It is summertime. I doubt you have much to do." "You would be surprised, Mr. Potter," the professor retorted. The judge cleared his throat in an annoyed way. "You would do well to take this more seriously. Now, since we are all here, we can begin." The goblin sat down at the table and looked at the stack of papers in front of him. "I will ask to not be interrupted while I read the criminal charges against Mr. Harry Potter." "Criminal charges?" Dumbledore exclaimed. "What did I just say about not being interrupted? I honestly expected better from you, Mr. Dumbledore." The judge frowned. "My apologies. Please, continue. What did Harry do exactly?" As I was about to begin saying, he put a piece of parchment on the table. "Mr. Potter arrived at Gringotts at 11 a.m. and requested access to the Potter Vault, along with his 2 guests. The goblin judge gave Daphne and Zinus a passing glance. Right after arriving at the vault area, Mr. Potter ignored the guide's warnings and tried to open the Peverell Vault instead. This, of course, triggered the safety measures put in place to protect the vaults from thieves. In this case, since those were some of the oldest and most secure ones, 3 Nundus were released to deal with the intruders. Merlin. 3 Nundus? Dumbledore's hands landed on the table with a lot of force. His eyes moved to Daphne and Zenos. They were very scary, Daphne said. Zenos nodded. I thought my end was near. And these Nundus? Dumbledore could already guess the answer as he looked at Harry, who just shrugged at him. It was self-defense, he stated, without going into details. The judge decided to continue. Yes, the 3 security beasts were slain by Mr. Potter, but this is not the most serious charge. Oh, Dumbledore made a worried face. Mr. Potter then proceeded to completely destroy the Peverell ancient vault gate, built by our ancestors by means that have been lost in time to us. A unique and irreplaceable piece. I was just trying to open it, Harry said. I was not done yet. The judge threw him a venomous glare. In the process of destroying this invaluable gate, he also caused tremendous damage to the chamber it was in. Those are just rock walls, come on, Harry complained. And the judge raised his finger. He half destroyed the Slytherin vault gate. Is that the one I hit? He recalled seeing something breaking behind him. The Slytherin vault? Daphne almost jumped from her seat before glancing at him. Harry, how could you? Do you have something against my house? I didn't hit that one on purpose, he said back. Although, if one vault was going to be damaged, I'm glad it was that one, he whispered the last part. These are very serious charges, Mr. Potter. The Commander Goblin raised his voice and spoke in a stern tone. Yes, Harry, be more respectful, Dumbledore told him. Fine, let's get down to business, Harry said. How much? Pardon? The judge raised an eyebrow. How much do I have to pay to fix this? He asked. Money? You think you can fix this with money? The commander slammed his fist on the table. I thought I made it very clear that those vault gates are priceless and irreplaceable. As for the 3 Nundus, those would be prohibitively expensive to replace, not to mention difficult. We can't just go to the nearest pet shop and ask for a Nunda, can we? The judge explained. And what kind of compensation would be necessary to fix this? Dumbledore asked with tact. 10 years of forced labor in our mines and 3 million galleons, the goblin judge declared. What did you say? Daphne's eyes opened like plates. That's outrageous. He is only 14. Dumbledore. According to the law written by your ministry, the minimum age for forced labor on wizards is 13. The judge corrected him. That must be an outdated law. Dumbledore considered it. No matter, the law is the law. There has to be something else, a different punishment. Zenot said, This was never meant to be a negotiation. I am merely stating his punishment. The judge glanced at the commander and this nodded. The goblin guards around the room grasped their spears. The tension became palpable. Just one wrong move and they would be attacked. Harry, on the other hand, looked very relaxed. I have a counteroffer. I already stated that this is not a negotiation, Mr. Potter. If you behave yourself, I may allow you to say goodbye to your parents before taking you to the mines. The judge gave him a cruel smirk. Dumbledore, Daphne and Zenos were all looking towards Harry with worried faces. They weren't really worried about Harry being arrested. They were worried about what his response was going to be. Dumbledore was the one who worried the most. He had a better idea than the majority about how dangerous the Goblin Nation was. The majority of the population didn't consider them a big threat because they only saw the few goblins who worked on the surface. But deep beneath there was an endless series of tunnels that led everywhere in the British Isles. There were even rumors of massive cities hidden underneath, filled with thousands upon thousands of goblins getting ready for the next war. Just the idea of going to war with these creatures again made his blood run cold. And with Voldemort working in the background to take over the country, this was the last thing they needed. Dumbledore was about to open his mouth and request to speak with Harry alone. They must discuss the best course of action, but Harry spoke before he had a chance. I want a trial by combat, he said with a straight face. Harry? Daphne was confused. What are you talking about? Trial by combat, you say? The goblin commander had a grave expression on his face. The judge was doing the same. "Harry, where did you hear that?" "There is no—" Daphne was interrupted by the voice of the goblin judge. "How did you learn about our trial by combat? You mean to say it's real?" Even Dumbledore was unsure of the existence of that goblin custom. Goblins were very secretive creatures who lived in closed communities. They would rarely share something with an outsider. The headmaster gave Harry a side glance and wondered when he had gained that bit of knowledge. "How did you learn about this, Mr. Potter?" the judge asked. He obviously shared the same questions as the rest of the room's occupants. "It doesn't matter. The law is clear. If someone is accused of a crime by the Goblin Nation, they have the right to request a trial by combat. If they are victorious, any and all charges will be dropped immediately," Harry told the judge, who proceeded to make a very displeased face. "This law is only meant for goblins," the judge raised his voice. "I don't think it specifies that in your books, does it? That means humans can also summon this law." Harry still recalled well that conversation he had with a very drunk Refik. The poor goblin had revealed a lot of the goblin's secrets to the entire bar that night. Not that it matters that much at this point. Harry never thought that any of that could be useful to him one day. "Well, does the law say that it's only for goblins then?" Dumbledore chimed in. "No, it does not." The judge had some difficulty getting the words out due to his anger. Of course, the law was meant for goblins, as every other law they had written, but no one thought about the need to specify that, since no one outside the Goblin Nation was meant to speak about it. The judge glared daggers at Harry. This could only mean they had a traitor in their ranks, but it was too late to fix this issue now. As a person of law, he had to abide by it. "Are you sure about this?" the Goblin commander spoke. "Since you seem to know about our customs, you must also be aware that a trial by combat is meant to be carried out with the exclusive use of close-range weapons. So no bows or crossbows are allowed, and of course that would include magical wands." "I do know about that part, yes," Harry told him without a single change in his facial expression. The commander looked displeased. He took this casual attitude of his as a great insult. "You think us weak, boy? You would do well to not underestimate us based on our looks. Goblins may be small compared to humans, but we are a martial nation. We begin our training at the age of 4 and we never stop after that, until we retire. Even those working at the bank could chop your limbs in a second if they were provoked." "I am sure that Harry's intention was not to insult you," Dumbledore tried to placate the angry commander. "No, it was not. And besides, aren't I the one being underestimated here?" Harry asked. He knew a lot about goblins. Despite not being able to use magic in the same way that humans do, they are, in essence, magical creatures. Even with their reduced size, they are at least twice as strong as humans are. And as the commander said, they are trained in martial fighting from a very young age. Every goblin is a potential soldier in case of war. The other thing that goblins excelled at was metallurgy and runes. This all combined turned them into the strongest warriors, with the best weapons and armor to boot, in the entire world. It was natural they would not take a martial challenge very seriously when it came from a human wizard. "The commander is right. For a young human wizard like you, this trial by combat would be akin to suicide. You are in time to change your mind." The judge managed to calm down after thinking about it a bit further. Even if Harry knew about their laws, he had no chance of winning, especially when they could choose any champion they wanted to represent the Goblin Nation. "I am not retracting my words. I want a trial by combat. That is final," Harry insisted. The judge glared at Dumbledore. "You are acting as his representative, and as such, you can stop this madness. As an adult, you may make the best choice for him." As much as the judge disliked Harry, having a young wizard from an important family potentially die at their hands, it was bound to bring trouble. "Oh?" Dumbledore pretended to be thinking about it for a good minute. "I believe that I will trust in Mr. Potter's judgment. If he wants to do this trial by combat, he can do so with my blessing." Dumbledore had never personally seen Harry fight with a sword, but if this was the way he had chosen to solve this issue, he would not get in the way. After all, Dumbledore was well aware that if Harry wanted to resort to violence, those cuffs they put on him were going to do little to stop him. "This is outrageous," the judge exclaimed. "Yes, let's get this over with." Harry could not wait to get out of this underground facility. The air was very unpleasant here. Luna definitely made the right call on not coming along. "So, does he have to fight here? Or?" Daphne asked. "Of course not. Trials by combat are a rare occurrence. But we have a place to carry them out," the commander said before looking at the judge. "The only thing left is choosing the champion who will face the wizard. Any of my men would be willing to—" "No." The judge cut him off abruptly. "I already have something in mind." He moved his eyes to the guards around the room. "Find me, Bloodfang." "Wow, they have a coliseum down here?" Daphne stared in awe at the magnificent structure. "I'm sure they have much more hidden in these tunnels. I really need to write an article about this." Zeno was taking mental notes. "I'm not sure that would be a good idea, my friend," Dumbledore added. "What you see here," spoke the general, "is just a small arena meant for trials. We have a much bigger one for the tournaments." "I didn't expect to have an audience." Dumbledore glanced at the goblins sitting around the stone platform. There were at least 24 of them, watching attentively from the stone benches that surrounded the arena. The commander gave the goblins a glare of disapproval. "This matter should not have reached the ears of the public, but word gets around quickly. I'm sure many are here to see what kind of human dares to challenge a goblin to a martial battle." They moved to one side of the arena. Once inside, it was not too different from the one at the Ministry of Magic. It was a rectangular stone platform that had been raised a few feet off the ground with one entrance on each side. All around it were places for the audience to watch, as well as some extra large doors covered with metallic fences situated below them. The decorations were undoubtedly superior, and the intricate carvings on the stones were a clear showcase of goblin artisanal skills. On the other side of the fighting arena they spotted the judge, Bluefang. Next to him was a large goblin, fully clad in dark metal armor with a helmet that completely hid his face. "I assume that is my opponent?" Harry asked. Commander Silveraxe nodded. "Indeed, that is Bloodfang," he said with a solemn tone. "You seemed very upset when the judge mentioned that name before. Why is that?" Daphne decided to ask. "Of course I was. You wouldn't know about him, but Captain Bloodfang is one of our best warriors. He has also been the Colosseum champion for the past 5 years in a row. There aren't many who would dare to cross blades with him. He is known for his cruelty and incredible thirst for blood. Judge Bluefang has been excessive in his choice of a champion for this trial. To fight a human child," he glanced at Harry. "No offense," he added. "We'll see about that." Harry returned the stare. Bloodfang stepped into the arena platform and they could now see him much better. He was certainly much bigger than the average goblin, almost reaching the height of a human. His body was also incredibly thick. His bulging muscles could be seen in between the gaps of his armor. He looked very impressive and intimidating as he turned to glare at his opponent. Bloodfang pulled out his sword and pointed it at Harry. "The human who wants to die, step up here. I don't have all day." His sword was very crude looking. It had a single-edged thick blade shaped more like a cleaver than a sword. On his left arm he held a circular metallic shield with intricate carvings on it. All of his equipment seemed to have been crafted with goblin steel, and all of it was heavily enchanted, as the glowing runes indicated. "How scary," Harry said. "And am I supposed to face my opponent while still chained and unarmed? Does your champion require a handicap, perhaps?" "What did you say?" Bloodfang shouted. The commander gave a sign to one of his men, and this one removed Harry's restraints. "Over there," Silveraxe pointed to one side of the arena. "You will find weapons and armor. Take what you need." He didn't believe this was going to be a long fight, but to send him in unarmed would be a stain on his honor. Then Harry gave Dumbledore, Daphne, and Zeno a quick look before turning around. "I'll be back in a moment." This earned him a few grunts and huffs from the upset goblins who were watching the human group. "We'll be here," said Zeno. "Don't take things too far," Daphne added. Most of the goblins in the arena thought that this wizard had lost his sanity for even requesting a trial by combat, and even more so after the fact that he did not try to run away from the challenge after learning who his opponent was. Harry ignored the stares and walked to the shelves containing the armament. He never had any intention of wearing any goblin armor, even if there was something there that could fit him. His eyes moved to the weapons. There was a good variety of them. Short swords, long swords, hammers, axes, spears. But even he could easily tell that these were just normal weapons, made with regular steel and without a single rune carved into them. One could find weapons such as these in any muggle shop that sold medieval-style blades. There was nothing special about them, and the armors were much the same. Compared to that, the equipment worn by Bloodfang could be considered priceless magical artifacts. Harry shrugged and picked up a long sword. These kinds of things did not have much importance to him. It also didn't really matter what weapon he chose, as none of them would be able to pierce that goblin's steel-enchanted armor. With his sword in hand, he jumped on top of the rectangular platform, ready to face his opponent. Bloodfang laughed when he saw him like this. "Oh, this is going to be quick." Harry's eyes became sharp for a moment. "Yes, I think so too." Right after the judge gave the signal to start, Bloodfang jumped into action without hesitation. He felt no threat from Harry or the simple steel sword in his hand. In only a short moment he had closed the gap between them. Gah! His cleaver descended upon Harry at tremendous speed, aiming at his shoulder. Harry used his own blade to deflect Bloodfang's. As the two weapons made contact, the blade of Harry's sword was cut at an angle with no effort, leaving only a small piece of it. Bloodfang laughed and lifted his sword again. "I'm finishing this now, boy." As he did this, Harry moved his eyes to the gap in the armor covering his right arm. There was a few inches of space around the joint of his elbow. Moving at lightning speed, he drove his broken sword in there, stabbing the goblin's exposed flesh. Bloodfang screamed in agony but did not stop his attack. Harry used his other hand to stop the vertical slash by grasping onto the goblin's gauntlet. Bloodfang gasped in shock when he saw this. By all means, he should be heavier and stronger than this human boy. This made no sense to him. He felt like he was having a terrible nightmare. This can't be. Harry moved his fingers to get a good hold on his opponent's blade before lifting his left leg and sending a powerful kick. Bloodfang raised his shield and blocked it, but the impact was enough to make him release his weapon before being sent flying backward. He only managed to stop himself at the border of the arena, and he hurried to stand back up and stare at Harry, who was now holding his own weapon in a menacing manner. "This has to be a dream," Bloodfang said. Humans were not supposed to be like this. The goblins watching were also thinking the same. They could not believe what they were seeing. Bloodfang grunted in pain as he removed the broken sword from his elbow. "Arg!" His eyes became bloodshot. "You damn human, I will kill you for this." His hatred rose to the point of losing his self-control. He was about to run at Harry but quickly realized there was no need for that, as this one was already doing that by himself. "Fast," Bloodfang muttered. He could barely follow Harry's movements as he approached. Before he could formulate any sort of plan, Harry was already next to him. Letting his instincts take over, Bloodfang raised his shield to block the attack. He knew how dangerous that blade was, but his shield was made of the same material, so it stood to reason that it should be able to resist its assault. Even with his quick reaction, Bloodfang was barely able to lift his shield in time to intercept the horizontal swing from Harry. He heard a loud clanking noise as the metals collided, followed by a sharp pain in his left arm. When he looked down, he understood why his shield had been cut in half, and so had his arm. The goblin had never suffered any serious wounds during his entire career as a fighter and a soldier. "No!" he screamed at the top of his lungs. His will to fight had been instantly shattered. Bloodfang's eyes moved to the front, trying to find Harry, but the human had already vanished from sight. He then heard Bluefang shouting, "Stop! It's already off!" Bloodfang felt something hitting the back of his head, and then nothing. Harry released the grip on the blade and let it fall, along with Bloodfang, who had the blade stuck on top of his head. He didn't want to drag the fight more than necessary, so after disarming his opponent, Harry moved behind him and gave the goblin a lethal blow. The audience was not happy with him. Impossible. That boy killed Bloodfang? He must be using magic. Yeah, he must have done something strange. The audience was both angry and unconvinced about his performance. Silence. The commander shouted with authority, "You shan't say a single word about what happened here today." The commander's eyes locked onto Harry. "The wizard fought according to our rules. So, I'm free to go then." Harry glanced at the judge. Bluefang appeared to be extremely enraged and did not take his eyes off Harry. And I don't have to pay anything, right?" Harry decided to add. The judge glared at Harry for a good minute. Then, "I can't believe he shouted at me like that, just because I won the fight. What a sore loser," Harry huffed as they walked out of Gringotts. "I'm fairly sure that Bloodfang and the judge were related," Daphne commented. "Well, what was I supposed to do? It was a fight to the death," Harry said defensively. "He did what he had to do." "I'm not sure that was the case," Dumbledore joined in the conversation. "That goblin judge never mentioned that you must continue to fight until someone dies. Now that you mention it, it was true that the goblin only said there was a risk of death. I believe he was about to stop the fight before you." Daphne made a motion with her hand. "But look at the bright side. The goblins would have been a lot angrier if they found out that you cheated." Dumbledore gave Harry a knowing look. "Cheated?" Zinus asked. "What do you mean?" Harry fought with a sword like they wanted. Daphne did not understand it either. "He did fight with a sword, but as for not doing any magic," Dumbledore started. "You used magic?" Daphne had not noticed this at all. "They only said that I couldn't use my wand. They never said anything about wandless magic," Harry stated. "It was implied, and you know it." Dumbledore gave him a look of disapproval. He knew that Harry could have won without breaking any rule, but decided to do it anyway. "What did you do?" Daphne was just curious at this point. "I used a bit of wandless magic to make the sword cut a bit better. Also, I used some enhancement charms on my legs," Harry admitted. "You are lucky the goblins have a poor understanding of wandless magic, so they could not pick on that. But they definitely know you did something, but otherwise that goblin steel sword should not have been able to cut through the shield in such a way." Dumbledore explained. "I wanted to finish it faster. Okay, let's keep this among ourselves. The goblins are angry enough with me." "Angry? They were talking about banning you from Gringotts as we were leaving," Daphne said. "What's done is done," Harry shrugged. "And it was much better than my alternative plan anyway." "You had another idea. What was it?" Daphne asked. Well, Harry scratched his head. "I think I better not say. That could have ended up in a war." Dumbledore cleared his throat. He wanted to change the topic of the conversation, but there was still something he wanted to know. "What were you even doing down there? What was so valuable inside that vault that you would even risk starting a war to take it?" Harry looked around. It was late afternoon, but there were still a lot of people in Diagon Alley. "I'll tell you another day." Dumbledore nodded. He could agree that this was hardly a good place to speak about important matters. "Very well, you may tell me tomorrow when you come to my office then." "Tomorrow?" Harry appeared to be confused. "Have you forgotten?" Dumbledore asked. "The Quidditch finals are tomorrow. You asked me to get us some seats." The next day, during the early hours of the morning, Harry visited the headmaster's office. He apparated in the hallway and walked to the gargoyle. Harry was waiting for it to request the password and speak some nonsense in return, but to his surprise, the statue moved aside without saying a word and allowed him to pass. When he entered the office, he found the old headmaster in his usual seat, writing something on a parchment. "Your gargoyle is broken," Harry told him. "No, it is not," Dumbledore answered without lifting his eyes from the parchment. "It didn't ask me for a password this time." Dumbledore stopped writing and placed the quill back on its stand. "I have given you full access to my office, so the gargoyle has no need for a password." You ruined my fun," Harry then heard a loud cry coming from the other side of the office. "Hello to you too, Fawkes." The Phoenix made some cheerful noises in response. "Wait, so this means I'm a fully fledged headmaster now?" Harry asked. Dumbledore chuckled. "As far as Hogwarts is concerned, yes, but legally, you are still a normal student." "Why? Are you interested in the position?" "Not at all, sitting all day in that chair, writing and reading stuff." "That's really not my style," Harry said in a joking manner, though he knew the real reason behind the headmaster's actions. He was making preparations for the worst-case scenario. "With that out of the way, can you tell me now, what were you doing at Gringotts yesterday?" Dumbledore was very curious about what could be so important as to risk turning the Goblin Nation into enemies. "The fourth Deathly Hallow," Harry answered. "There is no such thing," Dumbledore muttered, not entirely sure if Harry was just trying to test him in some way. "Hey, you don't know everything. That's fine. Until yesterday he had no idea either." "And you found this unheard-of relic in Gringotts?" The headmaster did not look very convinced yet. "Inside the Peveril vault," Harry said. "Indeed?" Dumbledore raised an eyebrow. "I would love to see it." "I thought you would." Harry distanced himself from the large table and moved to a less crowded place in the office. He closed his eyes for a moment and focused. "What?" Dumbledore stood up from his chair and stared in shock at Harry. A black substance seemed to emerge from inside his body and covered him completely. "What is that?" Dumbledore asked. The fabric of the robes was fluttering around, despite there being no wind inside the office. It covered Harry's body from head to toe, and Dumbledore could barely see him at all, except for a pair of green eyes which made the whole look more unsettling. "Harry?" Dumbledore called for him with a hint of wariness. As he had done with Daphne, Harry removed the hood and revealed his face. This time it was easier, and he was much more aware of what he was doing. He had time for a few hours of practice last night at home. "That's not what I was expecting." Dumbledore continued to observe the robes with great interest. He wasn't as knowledgeable as Xenophilius when it came to the Deathly Hallows, but he had seen enough depictions of death to recognize how much these robes resembled them. "The robes of death," that's what Zeno said. "What do you think? Still doubtful?" Harry asked. "And you found them inside the Peveril vault? How did you write?" Dumbledore was about to ask how Harry managed to open a vault belonging to another house, but now the charges from the goblins made more sense to him. The headmaster sat back down in his chair. "Now that I have it in front of me, I do not doubt the artifact's authenticity. But your method of acquiring it could have been a bit more discreet." "Yes, well, things didn't go according to plan." Dumbledore smiled. "They usually don't, my boy. So what does this fourth Hallow do?" "The other three all offer powerful abilities. I cannot imagine this one to be any less. Haven't had much time to test it, but I think I've learnt about the nature of this artifact and the abilities it offers. It is a bit more complicated than the other three," Harry explained. "Is that so? Care to elaborate?" the headmaster asked with interest. Harry pointed to a ceramic cup resting on top of the headmaster's table. It was the one he used for his morning tea. The elves hadn't removed it yet. "I'll do a small demonstration. Keep your eyes on the cup," Harry said as he focused. All of a sudden, a pitch-black circle appeared next to the cup. The circle was just floating in the air, and it was so dark that it almost seemed as if someone had removed a piece of space itself, leaving behind an empty void. Dumbledore was already surprised by this, but then a hand appeared from inside the black void and took hold of the cup, dragging it inside before disappearing. Dumbledore's eyes moved to Harry, just in time to see him pulling his hand out of a similar black hole. Harry was holding onto his cup. "Pretty nifty, huh?" Harry said with a grin before moving closer to the desk and placing the cup back in its original place. The black circles vanished from existence, and everything returned to how it was before. "Space manipulation," Dumbledore muttered. "A very rare type of magic," Dumbledore added. "What else can you do with it?" The robes began to shrink until they disappeared completely. "Come on, I didn't come here to perform tricks for you, Professor." The truth was that he couldn't really do anything more at the moment. but this was the result of just one night of practice, so it wasn't too shabby. The headmaster returned to his usual calm demeanor. Right, but we still have some time before the portkey becomes active. He pulled a piece of paper from one of the drawers. There is something I want you to see first. A teacher's list? Harry read the headline out loud. Yes, they are the selected teachers for this upcoming school year. I think you'll find some of the names interesting, Dumbledore told him. Harry's face went pale when he saw the name. Wait, Dolores Umbridge as the defense teacher. Please tell me this is a joke list or something. No, I'm afraid that is the final list. It has already been approved by the school board, Dumbledore said with a solemn tone. You are aware of what type of person she is, because I told you about it, Harry stated. Even if you didn't, I would still know very well what kind of person she is. So I take it you didn't personally choose her for the position. What happened then? Harry asked. That choice was forced upon me by a new law that allows the Ministry of Magic to influence some decisions for all magical schools located within Britain. The school board also put as much pressure as possible to get the choices they wanted. You are the chief warlock of the Wizengamot. How can that happen? Dumbledore's expression became more somber. I no longer hold that position. It was decided by a majority vote to remove me from it and choose someone else instead.
What?
Harry expected some things to change, but this was moving very quickly. I believe Electo Caro has now been given that honor. My influence in the ministry is very minimal at the moment. I have no doubt that I will also lose my title of Supreme Mugwump of the ICW. Very soon, as my contacts there have been warning me, it is already fortunate that I managed to hold on to my place as headmaster. They will no doubt try to take that away as soon as possible. I wasn't aware that things were that dire already. Looks like you took a political beating this summer. Many things have happened. Yes. The minister has changed the most. He is now much more aggressive and imposing with his moves. His policies are also much more extreme and openly anti-Muggle. I guess I underestimated what Lord Parkinson was capable of. You don't really think this is just him making these decisions, Harry stated. No, of course not. These things happening shortly after Voldemort's return cannot be a coincidence. He must be the one behind many of the changes. No one has seen it yet, but I can feel his influence in the ministry. Harry glanced back at the list. So we are going to have that woman as a teacher. You have no idea how insufferable she is going to be. He was beginning to contemplate the pros and cons of killing her in the first week of school. Indeed, they even forced me to retire. Professor Binns, the ghost? You know that is not a terrible idea anyway. Who is the replacement? He went down the list until he found the name of the new history professor. This can't be right. I know what you are going to say. That man is a known follower of the Dark Lord, but he was cleared of all charges after leaving Azkaban. No, this man is more than a Death Eater. He is a dead Death Eater. Harry looked at the name again in case he made a mistake. What are you? I'm saying that Augustus Rookwood is dead. He cannot conceivably be a teacher unless you are planning on replacing one ghost with another. Dead? No, that's not possible. I have personally seen him speak before the school board last week, Dumbledore said with absolute certainty. Harry informed him about the night he went into his castle. But you never found his body. He could have escaped from whoever attacked his house. I summoned his soul, Harry revealed. Dumbledore's expression changed. You did? Harry had already told him about his ability to control the Deathly Hallows' powers, so he was not too surprised to hear this. Dumbledore was even a first-hand witness to these abilities when Harry tried to bring the soul of his sister Ariana back. It only lasted for a few minutes, but he would never forget it for as long as he lived. According to what Harry said, he could only maintain the connection for a short period of time because she had been dead for too long, and her spirit was now too disconnected from the mortal realm, making the process more difficult and consuming. So, what did his spirit have to say? Dumbledore asked with curiosity. Nothing. I could not talk to him at all. His soul had been damaged beyond repair and disappeared shortly after, Harry explained. Are you suggesting what I think you are? Dumbledore asked. A person dies. Their soul is either damaged or destroyed, and then that same person is walking around like nothing had happened. Harry looked at Dumbledore directly. Can you think of any magic that can accomplish that feat? I do. Dumbledore could only think of one possibility. Things like Polyjuice Potion were ruled out since they require the target to be alive. Hair from a dead person would be useless. Human transfiguration is a more distant possibility, but that one requires great mastery over that type of magic. And it would have no effect on the soul whatsoever. As far as he was aware, necromancy was the only thing that could accomplish such a feat, and Dumbledore knew well that Voldemort had been delving into that dark path for a very long time. Any spell in particular? Harry asked, trying to gather more information about necromancy, as his own knowledge in that branch was very limited. However, there were no books about it in his family library, and you couldn't just walk into a bookstore and ask about them, since that type of magic was highly illegal. I'll have to ask Lord Greengrass about this, Harry thought. Of course not. Dumbledore denied immediately. I am an advocate for the freedom of knowledge, but some knowledge should remain untouched. That is not a branch of magic that I wish to touch. You won't find much information about that in Hogwarts either. Sure, but it would be useful to know what he's doing. This also raises some questions, Harry said. If Voldemort could make the dead act like the living, are you suspecting someone in particular? Dumbledore asked. A few. The only good thing about this was that Harry had a reliable way to check if someone was dead or alive. He was unable to interact with the souls of the living, so if he called for someone's spirit and it answered, that person was dead for sure. Oh, it's time to go. If we miss the portkey, there will be no more chances, Dumbledore said, pulling an object from his tunic as he moved around the table to the other side. Here, hold on to it. Harry gave him a serious glare. Is that a dirty sock? The crowd was massive. Perhaps even bigger than what he remembered. Our seats are that way, Dumbledore told him. Harry glanced over at the VIP area.
You got a private box?
Of course. I still have some reliable contacts, Dumbledore said with a satisfied grin on his face. Albus? Someone turned around when he heard Dumbledore speak. It really is you. I wasn't expecting to see you at a Quidditch game of all places. He looks very familiar, Harry thought as he stared at the middle-aged white man with a mustache and a top hat. He was sure he had seen him before. Bartemius. I also wasn't expecting to see you here, Dumbledore responded. Harry, this is Bartemius Crouch, the head of the Department of International Magical Cooperation. Right. Harry now recalled him, though he was more familiar with his son. Would Barty Jr. still be alive? He wondered. Harry. Dumbledore tapped him on the shoulder. Harry realized that Crouch was staring at him. Nice to meet you, sir. I'm Harry Potter. Potter? Ah, yes. You must be the son of James Potter. As Crouch looked at him, Harry got the impression the man didn't like him for some reason. I heard your father quit the Aura Division. How shameful, Crouch huffed. Bartemius, Dumbledore said in a warning tone. Don't mind me. Crouch chuckled. I'm just talking. Oh, he turned to look at his side. This is my new assistant, Wither. Weatherboy? Wother? Wesley, sir. Percy looked a bit embarrassed and tried to avoid making eye contact with Crouch. Right, that Crouch glanced again at Dumbledore. So you brought a student to watch a game. That's a bit unusual. Yes, well, Mr. Potter here got excellent marks last year. I had some extra seats, so I brought him along as a reward for his outstanding performance. Dumbledore explained, saying the first thing that occurred to him. Crouch seemed to be losing interest quickly. Anyway, I'll be visiting the school soon. We need to discuss you-know-what, he said the last part, almost in a whisper. Of course, visit any time you want, Bartemius. The man soon left with Percy and his house elf following him. Harry paid close attention but couldn't detect any other sources of magic around them. If his son was hiding, I should have felt something. This didn't really mean much. He could have been left at home, or maybe he has already escaped, or maybe he is dead. Harry? Dumbledore called when he saw Harry staring intently at the back of Crouch. Everything okay? Nothing to worry about for now. So, the Triwizard Tournament? Harry asked. I didn't have the chance to tell you yet, but yes, it wasn't my idea. But Bartemius and a few other influential wizards were very insistent on using Hogwarts as the host location. Dumbledore was especially wary of this tournament after hearing what had happened in Harry's timeline. Of course, but he had been powerless to stop it. This is fine. I don't want you to stop it. It gives us a good chance. Harry appeared to be considering something. A chance for what? Dumbledore asked. To put things in our favor, but it's still too soon to tell. There were still many unknown factors, and Harry didn't want to rely too heavily on his old knowledge. Harry? Is that Harry? Before they could step onto the stairs leading to their box, they were spotted by someone else. Ginny. Harry glanced at the girl. He had only seen her briefly at the beginning of the summer before she went to visit some family members. In this short amount of time, she seemed to have grown even more. With every day that passed, she became closer and closer to the Ginny from his memory. Did you get taller? Harry asked when she was in front of him. She offered a sweet grin. You noticed? I actually... Hey, are you going to one of the upper boxes? Ron almost pushed his sister out of the way to get in front of Harry. Can I go with you? He said excitedly. Whoa, the view here is amazing. Ron leaned against the railing. These are high-grade view enhancers, George said as he took hold of one of the devices that had been set up in the headmaster's VIP box. I bet we can even see the players' nose hairs with these. Ew, why would you want to see that? Ron made a disgusted face. I'm sorry for this, Albus. Just let me know if they're too much of a bother and I'll take them away, Molly Weasley said with embarrassment. Don't worry about it, Molly. This box is plenty big for everyone, Dumbledore brushed aside her concerns. Ron had kept insisting on coming to the fancy seats, so in the end Dumbledore invited the entire Weasley family to join him and Harry. Still, we already had some seats reserved, Molly said. The Diggories will enjoy the extra space then, her husband Arthur said. Right. Molly had almost forgotten they were going to share a tent with the Diggory family later. We should go tell Amos something. He'll get worried otherwise. I'll go speak with him. You stay here with the boys, Arthur offered, standing up. Let me see, too. Ron was now trying to push George off the viewing device. Use the other one, his brother replied, pushing him back. It's not working, Ron huffed. Hold on. George's tone suddenly changed, and he leaned his face closer to the artifact while pointing it at the audience. I think I saw some villas? What? Let me see. Now Fred was also trying to push him away. Molly sighed. Do they always have to be so noisy? She glanced toward the other corner, where her daughter was standing next to Harry. They seemed to be engaged in a pleasant conversation. Why can't Ron be a bit more like Harry? They're the same age, but one is so mature, while the other one has the manners of a toddler. Dumbledore let out a chuckle. All kids mature at different ages. I mean, look at your daughter. She's younger than everyone else, but she's always polite and well-behaved. Ginny? Yes, in some ways she is like that, but she also has a rebellious side. That girl loves to sneak behind my back to fly that broom of hers, or do who knows what else. I don't know how to control her anymore. I do believe that's also very normal for her age, Dumbledore said. I know that too, but she's going to have a hard time finding a good husband with that wild personality of hers. A bit early for that, don't you think? The headmaster asked. It's never too early to start looking. Molly's eyes went to Harry. If only... Sorry I couldn't send more letters this summer, Ginny was telling Harry, completely oblivious to her mother's thoughts on the other side of the room. My parents would only let us use the owls from the next city's owl office for some reason. They've been acting weird all summer. Weird? In what way? Harry asked. Ginny looked displeased just from remembering her summer. We spent the first 6 weeks locked in our house in Paris. It wasn't really their house, but Lord Greengrass had let the family use a house located near the shop where Arthur was now working. I mean, the house is 10 times better than the borough, but they wouldn't let us go into the city at all. I couldn't even fly my broom because the house was too close to a Muggle neighborhood, Ginny lamented. And after that, did you go back home? I wish, she huffed. We went to Aunt Muriel's house. I hate that woman. She always forces me to clean and cook and wouldn't let me have any fun. Sorry to hear that. Harry had a good idea about why Molly and Arthur were acting so paranoid this summer, and why they avoided going to the Burrow. As members of the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore must have kept them informed about the current situation. This is the first time I can have some fun all summer, Ginny complained. And in just a few more days you'll be back at Hogwarts, Harry said. Yes, she exclaimed with excitement. I never thought I'd be looking forward to going back to school this much, but here we are. I hope my flying skills didn't get rusty over the summer. I'm sure you'll be fine, Harry assured her. Are you planning on staying as a seeker? Ginny shrugged. For now, at least, there won't be any openings for the chaser position until Angelina and Alicia graduate at the end of the upcoming year. Harry could not tell her that the Quidditch House Cup was likely to be cancelled this year due to the Triwizard Tournament. Well, I think you did great as a seeker, so it wouldn't be a loss to stay as one. But it's best to do whatever you enjoy the most. Thanks, Ginny smiled at the compliment. Oh, I just realized something. This year I can finally go to Hogsmeade, she said with excitement. It's not like you didn't already go last year. Ginny chuckled nervously. About that, don't tell anyone, please. Of course I won't. And if anyone is going to find out, it'll likely be through my sister's mouth. That's true. Ginny had to agree with that. Say, Harry, since this year would you want to go to Hob? They're here, Ron screamed like a madman. Yes, the game is about to begin, George shouted. The players are finally here, Fred said with joy. The game went exactly as Harry remembered. Ireland won against Bulgaria, but Victor Crumb was the one who ended it by catching the snitch after realizing they couldn't close the point gap. It was late at night by the time it was all done, and most attendees retired to their camps. Harry and Dumbledore were invited to rest in the Weasley tent since they still had room for a few more people. They accepted the offer, even though neither of them was planning on sleeping. Harry activated his invisibility and walked outside after everyone fell asleep. He immediately found Dumbledore waiting for him. That seems very handy. I didn't feel your approach at all, the old headmaster commented when he noticed Harry appear at his side. It's supposed to be as untraceable as the cloak used to be. And no need for enchantments, Harry said. Well, it's not that surprising considering its origin, Dumbledore added. Harry smiled. During my first year, I tried to sneak around using the cloak and you found me very easily. I still don't know how you did it. Did I? Dumbledore smiled with amusement. He knew that Harry wasn't talking about this lifetime, but his previous one. I can't really answer that, but I'm sure the other me had a few tricks up his sleeve. The headmaster scanned the area with care. There were hundreds of tents covering the surface of the clearing. The light of the full moon and a few torches was enough to see quite far into the distance. You think something is going to happen tonight? Honestly? No, Harry simply answered. You don't? Dumbledore asked, a bit surprised by his answer. He was about to speak again when Harry continued. But it would be good if it did. Harry had a very stern expression at the moment. How so? Dumbledore could not think of a single positive thing about having a group of Death Eaters attacking them. The attack happened before his resurrection, before the Dark Lord could reclaim his empty throne. The ones who did it were likely some drunk idiots who missed the old days. I was just a clueless child back then and didn't get to see much. So this is mostly speculation, but I understand. Dumbledore then realized no attack would mean that he is in full control of his forces again. It was clear to them that Voldemort still wished to keep his return silent. He wouldn't want some of his followers to come here and start terrorizing people in his name. It would also give me a chance to capture a few of his followers and get some details from them. It's not like I can walk into the ministry and grab them, Harry said. I hope so. Dumbledore gave him a side glance. Something like that would turn you into an international criminal. The two of them continued to wait and observe for the entire night. In the end, the sun began to creep on the horizon, and the quiet night ended without a fuss. What now? A worried Dumbledore asked. If the enemy doesn't want to show, we have two choices. We could do something drastic that might force him out, or we'll have to discover what he has planned and use it in our favor," Harry concluded. The door of the tent opened up. Ginny stepped outside and started looking around until she spotted him, standing a few feet away from the tent. "There you are," she exclaimed. "You really woke up early, huh?" "Oh, Headmaster didn't see you." Dumbledore smiled. "Yes, you seem to be very preoccupied with finding Mr. Potter," he said with amusement. Ginny blushed. "Sorry? Don't be. I believe it's time I take my leave. There's still much to prepare before the start of the new school year. Minerva would never forgive me if I slack off." "That does sound like Professor McGonagall. Did you sleep well in our tent? You look a bit tired," Ginny noted. Neither he nor Harry had slept for a single minute, so it was normal they looked tired. Harry was less noticeable because he had tremendous stamina. A few days without sleep wouldn't be too detrimental to him, especially if he used magic to diminish the effects. "I'm afraid I had too much on my mind to sleep soundly, but regardless, I thank you for the invitation into your family tent, Miss Weasley." Dumbledore pulled out his wand and looked at Harry again. "We can talk again in a few days." "Of course," Harry nodded, giving the headmaster a wave before he disappeared. Ginny and Harry stood there for a moment. "I didn't know you were that close to the headmaster." "Yes, we became acquainted a couple of years ago." "A couple of years ago?" This brought her some memories. "He was very curious about the magic I used to destroy the castle grounds," Harry said with a grin. Ginny gasped. "You mean this was the year when he fought that giant basilisk? I hope you didn't get into trouble for that." She never really thought about it. She had been too traumatized by the monster itself. But the aftermath of that night had been quite severe. A large part of the castle was broken by the basilisk as it made its way out, and then Harry had used that fire magic that left a massive burned hole on the ground. Not at all, the headmaster understood the situation. "To be honest, you should have gotten a reward for that, like an Order of Merlin or something. I mean, they gave one to Professor Lockhart." Ginny made an angry expression. Harry chuckled. "Yes, he loved to remind us of that. Maybe I should behave more like Lockhart." Ginny's expression changed. "Please no." As soon as Harry crossed the main gates of the castle, he somehow knew that this year was going to be different from the others. There was a tension in the air that he could not describe. Hogwarts felt different, as if the castle itself knew that some danger was lurking around and was getting ready for battle. The rest of the students around him were completely oblivious to this fact. They were all cheerful and happy to be back at Hogwarts and see their friends again, like one would expect. Hermione, Parvati, and Lavender passed by his side and greeted him. Those three had become inseparable since the first year, and even though she would never admit it, Hermione had changed a lot. She now worried a lot less about books and studies and paid much more attention to her appearance. Not that she stopped studying, but had found a better balance in her life. The boys were definitely starting to notice this. Many of them turned their heads as she passed. "Harry, come on, walk faster. I don't want to miss anything." Lyra tugged at his robes. "It's the welcoming feast. It's always the same thing. What is there to miss?" Harry rolled his eyes. "Well, I'm going without you then." Lyra stuck her tongue out and ran ahead to catch up with her friends before they had to take their seats. Harry continued to walk at his own leisurely pace. He was in no hurry to begin this year. The corridors began to empty as more and more students got ahead of him. "What's with the bitter face? The year has just begun." Daphne walked in front of him, blocking his way, so he had to stop. "What if I told you that I had a vision of the future, and it was not good?" Harry said. Daphne gave him an inquisitive look, as if trying to figure out if he was serious. "I'd tell you to go teach the divination class. Apparently you're the only one still having visions of the future." The problem with divination had now become public knowledge. After all, they had to give some explanation for the sudden cancellation of divination classes in all magical schools worldwide. And after the rumors about the state of the prophecy hall in the Ministry of Magic started to circulate, the disappearance of an entire branch of magic had been a big deal in the news. More so because no one knew how it happened, if it was permanent, or if other branches of magic were also going to start disappearing. I don't like teaching, Harry retorted. That's too bad, you're really good at it. Could you two go flirt somewhere else? Tracy bumped their shoulders as she stormed away. Tracy? Daphne called after her friend. I'll go alone, she shouted without stopping. What's with her? Harry raised an eyebrow. Tracy had never liked him, but this was a bit too much. She was usually polite at least. Don't mind her. She has been like this for a while. It's because of her boyfriend Zabini. Well, I should say ex-boyfriend now, Daphne commented. Zabini broke up with her? He honestly didn't even remember they were dating at all. He didn't just break up, he's not coming back to Hogwarts. Harry was surprised to hear this. Despite its flaws, Hogwarts was still considered one of the most prestigious magical schools in the world. Unless something very serious happened, a pure-blood house like the Zabinis wouldn't quit the school. Do you know why? Harry asked. Daphne gave him a knowing look. I know what you're thinking. Harry had told her about Voldemort's return and everything his father saw that night, so she could make an educated guess about Harry's suspicions. Zabini's family has always remained neutral, much like mine. You know it well, Daphne. That's not going to work anymore, Harry told her.
So you think that...
I just don't think it's a coincidence, that's all. Daphne remained silent for a moment, considering the possibility. The pressure on her family had lessened a lot after Lord Malfoy passed away, but she had no doubt that this was going to change soon. Right. She'd rather not think about it now. After looking around and not seeing any more students nearby, Daphne pulled something from a hidden pocket. It was a small rectangular box that fits in the palm of her hand. She held it up for him to see. My father would rather not ask why you need something like this, but... Harry grinned and picked up the tiny box. You'll know soon enough. I think the surprise will make it better. She frowned. I'm not sure I want to be surprised by you. That usually involves danger. Harry stored the box very carefully so as not to damage the enchantment on it. Then, from the other side of the hallway, they heard hurried steps. Hey, you two! They both recognized the badge on the older boy who called them. It was a prefect from Hufflepuff. What are you waiting for? The feast is about to begin. The boy appeared to be in a foul mood already. Sorry, we were just catching up about our summer, Daphne told the boy. Sure, come on. Walk ahead of me so you don't get lost in a broom closet or something. Word. Daphne's face gained a red tint. Harry didn't take it seriously and just laughed about it. It's not funny. She hit his shoulder. I have a reputation to maintain. You mean the whole Ice Queen thing? She hit him again. I meant a reputation as a proper student. Okay, fine. Do you want me to obliviate that guy? Harry waved his wand around.
You know?
Daphne had an impassive expression. It worries me the fact that I don't know if you are joking or not. Welcome once more to Hogwarts. Dumbledore tried to appear as cheerful and energetic as usual, but he felt so tired. I don't know. He looks off this year. Hermione and her friends were just discussing this. It's probably just age. I mean, isn't he like over 100 or something? Lavender commented. He was still very lively last year. And besides, wizards can easily live over 100 and be in good shape, right, Harry? Hermione glanced at him. He nodded absent-mindedly, his attention somewhere else at the moment. Harry's bright green eyes scanned the professor's area. The toad was easy to find. She was standing close to the podium where the headmaster was still giving his welcome speech. She looked about ready to push him out of the way and take his place for herself. Then there was Augustus Rookwood. This one was easy to miss if one wasn't paying attention. He took his seat between Hagrid and Flitwick. The man had a bald head, an unkempt black beard, and a large scar across his face. He wore very simple black robes with no decorations on them. The scowl on his face could almost put Snape to shame, but this one seemed directed at no one in particular but more like his natural state of mind. Other than the scar, there was only one remarkable thing about Rookwood that made him stand up for Harry. It was in his eyes. There was no light in them. They looked like the eyes of a dead fish. Harry had never met the man in person and had only seen a single picture of him, but he doubted that was his usual look. I'll soon get some answers on that front at least, he reminded himself. Dumbledore ended his speech and was about to introduce the new professors when the woman behind him decided it was finally time to act. Ahem, if you don't mind, headmaster, she sneered when she called him that. I wish to introduce myself. Right, of course. Go ahead, Miss Umbridge. Dumbledore stepped back and allowed the plump woman to step in front of the podium. Her smile was giving him a shiver, and he would rather look at anything else. She gave the great hall a passing glance and smiled with delight and a clear air of superiority. I'm sure most of you still remember me from last year's announcement, or for my fantastic work at the Ministry of Magic as the right hand of Minister Parkinson. But in case you somehow don't, my name is Dolores Umbridge, and I will be your new defense professor this year. She received mild applause after the announcement. She didn't seem very pleased with that. I expected better. Is that all the enthusiasm you have? A scowl crept behind her false smile. This time most of the students clapped. They all knew she was the type to keep insisting until she got what she wanted. A bit better. Umbridge nodded. Now, besides being your new professor, as his loyal right hand, our beloved Minister Parkinson has also decided to entrust me with an extra position. The smile returned to her face as she was about to read the next part of her speech. Along with the school board of directors, we have decided to bring back an old charge that used to be part of every magical school in Britain back in the day. This is the High Inquisitor of Education. The hall erupted in murmurs. Silence. She used her wand to amplify her high-pitched voice several times over. This was enough to be called a weapon, and all the students cried out in pain while covering their ears. You will remain quiet while a professor is speaking to you. She looked back at the other professors sitting at the table. It seems like you educators have failed to teach you some proper manners, but that will change this year. Her eyes moved across the hall. As High Inquisitor, I will have full authority to create and enforce new rules and regulations, and I have the feeling that I will have to make many changes around here, and Miss Umbridge, Dumbledore tried to get her attention. What? She snapped back. There was still one more page left, and she hated to be interrupted. We need to get the feast started soon, so… Umbridge frowned. Fine. Since the headmaster has decided to interrupt me so rudely, I will finish my introduction here. You will learn all the details very soon anyway. She stepped back and walked away with loud steps. Dumbledore sighed and got back on the podium. Well, we also have another professor to introduce. Professor Augustus Rookwood will be replacing Professor Binns in the subject of History of Magic, now that Professor Binns has decided to retire. He glanced towards the dark-robed man. Professor Rookwood, would you like to say a few words to your new students? Rookwood stood up and glared at Dumbledore for a few seconds. No, he grunted before sitting back down. Dumbledore wasn't sure what to say to that. Right. Well, let's give Professor Rookwood a nice welcome. The students gave a few claps before the hall fell back into an awkward silence. None of them knew what to think about their new history professor. Now I know you are all very hungry and wanting to begin the feast, but there is one more very important announcement to make before that. This year Hogwarts is bringing back another old tradition to these halls. I am honored to inform you all that we will soon be hosting the Triwizard Tournament.